Well, good evening, everyone. This is Dr. Ella Thorpe with Talk to the Doctor, Tustin Longevity Center here in Southern California. And I am talking on November 22nd, 2022. We meet at 6 o'clock every Tuesday night now, and we go with our email questions that we get in. If you have questions that you would like to address, look at the email contact in the bottom there. You can also, if you're on YouTube, type in your questions on the chat as we proceed. Normally I start with the email questions, then I have 3 pages. So we'll start with that tonight. This is meant for educational purposes. We are a group of functional, integrative medical doctors, naturopaths, physician assistants. There's 7 of us here at Tustin Longevity Center. And we are trying to make this available not only just to our patients here to ask general questions, not for personal individual advice, but to just generally approach how we would look at questions they might have and how we would begin to approach them from a preventative point of view. And we just like the variety and the access that this gives us all. The other thing is, if you go to our website for Tustin Longevity, it's tlcdoctors.com. That's our website. And if you go to the blog, they usually transcribe the questions and then our responses, and you can then topically maybe glean through them later at your convenience and see what you might like to look at. So what we would say tonight is, of course, Happy Thanksgiving, and we pray for a safe and healthy and a wonderful time of giving of thanks and gathering of family and friends, and that you will all have a wonderful and good time with each other. And to everyone on Thanksgiving Day, eat what you would like and have a good time. But remember, we're going to advise you not to eat leftovers and leftovers at your friend's house and your mother's house and your sister's house and on and on. We're reminding you that it would probably be good to go on a fast that would try and make up for some of the indulgences that we're going to be having on Thanksgiving Day. So we have a Thanksgiving to give, and then we have Christmas Day, and we all probably have an office party, and then maybe a New Year's Day party. So that's 3 or 4 times we are probably going to have a celebration kind of feasting, and we need to keep this under control. So we want to encourage you. The older we get, our muscle mass declines, and our ability to eat what we had in the past diminishes, because as our mass of muscle declines, the ability to burn those carbs declines also. And that's part of the reason why we ask you to do weight training as you age, not just aerobic as well. And then try and not eat late. Try and hold yourself back from eating late. So we will begin. I can see some questions starting up in the YouTube chat area here that I will get to. But we'll start with our first of 3 pages. Again, this is not meant to be medical advice individually, but it is to look at these topical questions and educationally how we might begin to approach this. So the first question I have on page 1 of 3 is from Dawn. And Dawn says, is it common to experience warmth in my stomach after taking digestive enzymes and or a tiny bit of nausea or burping? Does it mean I consume too many for my chemistry in that moment? Does the efficacy of orthomolecular digestive enzymes wear off after the expiration date, or can they still help break down proteins? Can I still take expired digestive enzymes without harm? Um, I have never personally paid attention to my orthodigestive enzyme expiration date. And in my decades and decades of using it, I would say that um, I've accumulated several bottles, some partially used up and some I forgot and put away, and I never throw them away. So I have used my orthodigestive enzymes without checking the expiration date. So I personally know of no harm. These enzymes, if they are expired or lose some of their activity, are just going to also be broken down into their component amino acids and such. So I can't imagine any harm that that would come to you. Now, if you're having a sense of warmth after taking them, or even a slight bit of burping or nausea, uh, we would not know whether that is what you just ate, the food, and the reaction you're having to the food you had. It depends on many factors: the stress, the rate of speed that you ate your meal, the time of the day you're eating it, the major components, what percent of that meal was carbohydrate, what percent was fat, and what was protein. All these things come into play. I would suggest that if it isn't anything more than a sense of warmth, uh, and if it isn't constantly happening, I don't think I would pay attention to it. I think instead I would observe, and if you see a pattern, then I would cut back and see if that goes away under similar eating conditions. I take typically 5 orthodigestive enzymes after I eat a meal. And I usually take them after the meal because I don't want to be called away if I'm busy or interrupted and take 5 on an empty stomach and never get the opportunity to eat the meal that I meant to digest them with. So that's kind of how I would see it. I don't worry about the expiration date. Certainly, I don't think there'd be any harm done. And I do certainly think that there are many other factors that could be associated with it. But if you see a pattern, maybe cut back, or it could conversely mean that you need more. I used to only take 1 or 2 digestive enzymes when I was younger. Now, at about 70 years old, I am taking 5 or 6 after a meal. Sandy then has the next question. I've heard you mention BioPC Pro. I'm wondering what the difference is between that and NT factor energy lipids, which I've been taking for years. I have some nerve condition, slowness in my feet, and venous insufficiency in my lower legs. Thanks, Dr. E. I do appreciate the transcription of these sessions. It's easier access for me. Blessings from Sandy. And what she's talking about, we've done a lot of research and publications. We have done studies here, and it's been a part of my activity as a doctor here at Tesla Longevity Center to do food research, nutraceutical research projects, cell membrane repair, and that cell membrane is made up of 50% fat and 50% protein. And if you get a hole blown into the cell membrane there, you're going to wind up with the need to have that healthy fat and those proteins to repair your cells so you're not getting all these holes popped in it and collapsing like a inner tube in the pool. So this is what Sandy's talking about. This is the old allergy research group, NT Factor Energy Lipid Powders, and we helped develop this for this company. And it contains all these phospholipids that make up our cell membranes that we have not been eating enough of because our corrupt, food advice pyramid made us afraid of eggs and meat and things like that, the egg yolks. And so we need these to have healthy membranes and to make our white blood cells. So that's what this is. Now, pardon me, since then we have noticed this tends to clump. It's a powder. It comes, you scoop out a scoop of this and you put it in some water, and then you take that morning and evening to help repair the lining of your gut. Over time, it gets clumpy. Let me see if I can see this here. Well, that's what it looks like inside with the little scooper. And you can see some clumps are starting in there. This, however, I haven't opened it, but Bio PC Pro is a powder, and we have found it's better received, and it is not clumping on us. And it has all the phospholipids in it, and is very valuable for the same reasons that this is so helpful. So this is what we're moving to, and this is the one we're going to be moving away from. And it's the same thing. There's really no difference. There's phosphatidylcholine in here. There is phosphatidylinositol, phosphatidylethynolamine, phosphatidic acid. So each of the naturally occurring phospholipid profile, about 10 grams per serving. That's a huge amount, and that's a wonderful amount. This one had a serving size, which is a scoop or 1/4 teaspoon, gave you about 4 grams. And so this is, you're getting more from this one here. So that's how I see it, Sandy. And that's how we're going to go with it. And, we've been pioneering this repair the cell membrane for over 30 years. And so we've been ahead of the spear point on it. And I think this is why we've had such great success with our patient base, and why, no matter what your age is, our patients are living healthier, longer lives. All right. Let's see. That was question number 2. The next one is from John. Apolipoprotein B unifies, amplifies, and simplifies the information for the conventional lipid markers as to the atherogenic risk attributable to the ApoB lipoproteins. Should an ApoB blood test be the standard measure for a patient's atherosclerosis risk? And I'm going to say a wholehearted no. And the reason why is because it's been quite clear. I've seen it borne out in 41 years of practicing medicine. It is how much sugar, starch, high fructose corn syrup, fruit sugars that you're consuming every day, which raises up the blood sugar stickiness, which creates injuries, which creates clogged tiny blood vessel capillaries, which choke the cells, injures the lining of the endothelium of the blood vessels, and attracts for tissue repair. And if we're not eating the healthy phospholipids I just mentioned, such as the egg yolks and the meat and the chicken and the fish and pork and the like, then we are not repairing as well. So we have these chronic injuries, ulcerations on the inside lining of our blood vessels, and then they become inflammatory attraction centers and then calcified down and so forth. Now, we are seeing more and more that the unpleasant truth that we're eating too many starch, bread, pasta, crackers, processed foods, roughly, I've heard as much as 80% of the foods in a typical grocery store never existed 50 years ago. All these products and the living healthy foods are becoming more and more diminished, genetically modified, and all these processed foods are being developed, and they're being laced with, not to mention preservatives, and to extend the life on the shelf, they are hydrogenating the fats so they don't oxidize with the oxygen and become rancid. but they're putting in them addicting components of high fructose corn syrup, and there's like 54 or 56 different chemical names for high fructose corn syrup derivatives and sugars, and it's confusing to the consumer. And so we're getting these sugars in all the time. And I think if you Google heart disease and insulin, heart disease, and high triglycerides or hypertriglyceridemia, if you Google heart disease and high blood glucose, you even know, even if you're not a healthcare provider, diabetics as a class have higher average blood sugars. That's what defines the disease label of diabetes. And they are not clearing their sugars out properly. And most of these are lifestyle created problems. The very small percentage is a type 2, a type 1 insulin dependent diabetes. And those are very rare. You can, as a type 2, become so poor that eventually you become insulin dependent, and they erroneously call that type 1, but really it's type 2 that's just amplified. And this is all blood sugar problems and heart disease. We know that diabetics have advanced heart disease, vision problems, strokes, heart attacks, peripheral vascular disease at a rate that far exceeds the population. So what is the number one thing that they're starting to turn to that we have been saying for decades here at Tustin Longevity Center? We have been saying, reduce your carbs, reduce your inclination to snack and eat and drink your sugars and all these foolish drinks and all these juicing drinks. Even many of these commercial health foods are really overpowered by sugars that impact us. We have been using insulin as a biomarker for heart disease for over 30 years here. We have been using homocysteine for over 30 years. We've been using highly sensitive C-reactive protein for over 30 years because we certainly understood that heart disease is a inflammatory disorder of the blood vessel lining, and that's primarily from a high carb, inactive diet. And so I don't care what little new specialty tests are out there that are correlated and are associated from the downstream post-inflammatory result. And that's what we're seeing with ApoB and the others. It is the sugar, fasting glucose, the hemoglobin A1C average glucose sticking to the protein hemoglobin in your blood. It is the triglycerides, which are made when there's excess sugars and you can't burn them down enough in time. Then the body will start turning that glucose into storage triglycerides and put them into fat cells, and your triglyceride level will rise. And the insulin will shoot up, and your baseline insulin level will not return to the baseline. It'll start staying higher and higher, anticipating that you will eat these carbs and you will need a higher amount of insulin to drive it into the cell. And that insulin is a growth promoting hormone. It is associated with increasing the fat and triglyceride content in your fat cells. It's associated with stimulating tumor growth and thickening of the blood vessel intimal wall, and on it goes. So John, I'm going to stick with what you can do yourself without a drug, and that is do weight training, build up your muscle tone at least twice a week, 20 minutes, weightlifting, aerobic exercise daily, don't eat late, fast intermittently on a time restricted level, and never eat late at night. That's the most confounding time to try and ask your body to burn up a load of food, and eat primarily more healthy fats and proteins, and limit your carbs, because in our country we are in a carbohydrate excessive environment everywhere you go. Hopefully that's helpful, John. Carrie asked the question, what's your opinion on therapeutic blood plasma exchange for autoimmune diseases like rheumatoid arthritis? I would say also, Carrie, that I am not against this plasma exchange, but it is so unnecessary. We have all kinds of rheumatoid arthritis patients that have voluntarily done food allergy tests. They learn what foods are reactive to them and they avoid them. They go on a low carb diet because many of these triggers for arthritis inflammation come from the leaky gut, which is just an injury to the one cell membrane thick lining of your gut. And that's from the food lectins and eating that same food over and over and not eating enough healthy phospholipids you saw us just talk about, or enough healthy eggs or meat or chicken with the skin on it and so forth that have these healthy fats and proteins. So the repair is not there, and so you get more injury more consistently over time. We're eating all day long and snacking and getting these foods that have glyphosate, genetically modified pesticide, herbicide, and this alarm is hitting us through our gut. And then the body sees this as an attack, and very often it is converted into any manner of autoimmune phenomena. In this case, you're talking about the autoimmune phenomena of rheumatoid arthritis. We have seen these patients come off their methotrexate, they've come off of their monoclonal antibody injections and their anti-inflammatory injections and their steroids, and they do remarkably well. So if it's serious and you're with someone who is able to get that available to you, because that's hard to get available, the therapeutic blood plasma exchange for autoimmune. And that's where they filter out these big antibody complexes through the passage through a membrane, plasmapheresis, and it stops them. But you'll generate those antibodies again if you don't change the lifestyle. So it's a high cost for a short-term activity where your own lifestyle could solve most of the problem. So that's what I have to say about that, Carrie. Jose, or Josie, I guess it is Josie. Hi, doctor. It's always very educational to listen to your recordings. Thank you so much. Thank you, Josie, for taking the time out of your day to help your patients. Question: how toxic is a daily glass or two of wine? I am on bioidentical hormones, 10 milligram bias and 200 milligram progesterone, Armour Thyroid 90 milligrams. Could drinking alcohol increase my chances of breast cancer? If so, is there a supplement you can recommend to help with detoxing? I am taking milk thistle and Eco Nugenics Pectaclear. That's probably pectin for detoxing. Alcohol is a toxin, Josie. I don't support alcohol consumption. It is a toxin. It has no nutritive value. It harms the liver. It is exclusively metabolized in the liver and consumes much of the duties that the liver was designed to just maintain a healthy body in its normal detoxing of other metabolites in our body. So I don't have anything good to say about having wine. certainly, if you're going to have a glass of wine at a family tradition, Thanksgiving or a Christmas or something like that, and it's, a few glasses a year, that's probably volume wise very minimal, and from a physiologic point of view, probably very small. But daily consumption of alcohol is a toxin, and there's no way I can support that. Yes, it will harm and aggravate the hormone balance, because alcohol is associated with elevating the estradiol component in a woman, in a man, in children, in the young, in the old. Any consumption of alcohol raises estradiol. And it gives it a bad name because alcohol, from this mechanism of a buildup, is usually associated with harm to the liver and tumor formation. Natural estradiol that's not exposed to the toxin alcohol, I would argue, is not associated with a breast cancer risk. I would encourage you to read the book Estrogen Matters, and you'll see it is far more likely the carbohydrate content of alcohol and its components, the high carbohydrate component of our lousy American diet, and the insulin hormone that it calls forth that stimulates the high sugar content rise and the insulin response and the growth promotion that is associated with cancer. So liver is helped with fasting, and fasting gives it a rest from metabolism stress, and taking things like alpha lipoic acid, 500 milligrams twice a day, taking milk thistle, taking even vitamin C, N-acetylcysteine, L-glutathione, and others are associated with helping the liver, but the number one would probably be alpha lipoic acid. The metabolism of estradiol is helped with calcium glucuronate and with items like diindolylmethane. These are items that are known to be associated with the breakdown of estradiol. So it's called DIM, D-I-M, diindolylmethane, calcium D as in dog, glucuronate. These would be helpful. But I would not drink alcohol every day. And I say that because of personal experience. I had a family member, of course, who I love very much and is a wonderful person, a hard worker. But this family member came home from work every day and would have their 1 or 2 glasses of wine. In reality, we in medicine are taught if a patient tells you 1 or 2, in general, it really means 2 to 4. And that's what this family member of mine was really doing. Ultimately, this family member was not on any estrogen replacement therapy. They ultimately gained weight. They ultimately were diagnosed with breast cancer. Her regular doctors did not check a thing about this. They just watched her getting worn out, working hard, gaining weight, and did nothing to help or check her or do preventative work until she felt a mass in her breasts and was diagnosed with breast cancer. We got her out here and we got everything handled. She had a partial mastectomy. She did fantastic. She lost a ton of weight. She stopped drinking the wine. And then I put her on a lot of good nutrients. We gave her chelation, high dose vitamin C. Her oncologist followed her up when she returned home out of state. And then life happens and she started having her wine again. And she started calling me about October of the year she died, saying she had chronic infection, sinuses, and she would call her doctor. He would call in an antibiotic, and then she would get better for a week or two. Then she would get sinus infection again, and the following month, another round of antibiotics. That happened 3 or 4 times. Then her ankle started swelling, and then she said she couldn't urinate, pass urine. And I was saying, what on earth are your doctors doing for you? Which was essentially nothing. And she flew out here, and I had her see the oncologist I had her see originally. And I could not believe how indurated with edema she was when she arrived. And there was very little that could be done. And her tumor markers for breast cancer were extremely elevated. But what was interesting, I did her estradiol level, and she had 179 estradiol, and she was not on any estrogen, and she was in her 60s. So that estradiol came from alcohol. And that alcohol and the sugar of it stimulated probably the original breast cancer and then the recurrence. And her foolish doctors aren't held responsible for their lousy care. And so that's how that story goes. So I'm biased. Josie, and I don't like alcohol. Adriana says, do you think it's worth to try a continuous glucose monitoring device? Prescription is required to use these devices, and most doctors do not know much about these new devices. It's kind of 6 of one and half a dozen of another, Adriana. If you know that you should be avoiding the carbohydrates, and there are no nutritional requirements for carbohydrates, then you should avoid them. And then your doctor will do a fasting blood sugar a month later or 2, and the insulin and the triglyceride and the hemoglobin A1C, and you will know how well you are doing. And I fear this is what's happening, many people are asking for this device not only to really control their blood sugars, but more to see what they can get away with. It'd be like putting an alcohol metering device in the skin to give alcohol levels to see how much you can drink before you get in the car. And that's my opinion on all of this new fandangled stuff for monitoring and so forth. When we know what to do, we can get a blood fasting sugar and those things I mentioned, and then do our exercise, not eat late, avoid the carbs, only eat healthy leafy greens and so forth, and then retest in 8 to 12 weeks. And that's how I recommend it to be done. That is not to say there aren't sincere people who are wanting to monitor their blood sugars and will be motivated through seeing improvements on their daily or weekly walk. So I'm not against that, but I fear that the sin nature in man, including myself, would cause me to learn what I can get away with, and then eventually, abuse things. So that's my from the hip opinion, Adriana. But I have prescribed continuous glucose monitoring units. I don't do it often, but that's what I'm thinking about it. Harlow says, Dr. Rita, is it safe to use beef tallow, that's the fat from the beef, as a daily body moisturizer? This can be rendered down into just the beef tallow, and it can be used, and I don't think you'll smell like a piece of beef. I've never used it. It's certainly not harmful. And it certainly contains the fats that our cell membranes do need, okay? So it makes all the sense in the world. So, Harlow, give it a try and let me know, and let us all know here, a month from now or two, if you see improvement on that. This especially is the dry time. This is when we wrinkle up more, we dry up more because of such drop in humidity. And that'd be interesting, but it's certainly safe, Harlow. Yes. All right, that handles that page. Penny says, Dearest Dr. Ellithorpe, well, that's sweet. Blessings and thank you once again for your timeless energy and caring. I'm Dr. Mitchell's patient, 83, and in pretty good health, eating well with numerous supplements for years, and on topical bioidentical estriol, testosterone, and oral progesterone. Normal diagnostic mammograms and diagnostic ultrasounds, but dense breasts. However, thermographies have consistently gotten worse since 2012 baseline. Atypical hypervascular patterns in both breasts, with a continued increase in the thermal patterns in both breasts, but findings in the left breast are now at a Th3 thermogram score, which is considered equivocal. The closed loop vascular completeness in the left breast has increased to 2 degrees centigrade and is outside the normal limits and is considered a thermographic finding. Global heat of the left breast was significantly increased from a delta T of 0.5 degrees centigrade to a 1.2 degrees, which is elevated. I have callbacks every 6 to 9 months, and these last findings were compared to the December 21. I do take allergy research diindolylmethane and orthomolecular estradiol, which includes the indole-3 carbinol, so the dangerous metabolites are in a safe place. I've been advised by other integrative practitioners to stop bioidentical estrogen. About a year ago, prescription for topical bioidentical was lowered, so the estradiol, which had been at about 5.7, was reduced to 3 and safer, but weaker estriol was increased to a 3. In spite of the reduction, and at that time applying topical progesterone on my breasts, the thermograms have gotten consistently worse. I don't want to stop using estrogen because of its youthful effects. Facial skin is lovely, cardiovascular, etc. But I'm frightened that I'm on the path to breast cancer. Please advise. Dr. E, thank you for your generosity. Well, thank you for joining us here and sharing. So what I would say, Penny, is this. Fibrocystic breasts do respond to iodine replacement therapy. I would do a 24-hour urine iodine test and start using iodoral, 1 tablet, 12.5 milligrams daily. Enzymes help disinflame, and using the systemic enzymes on an empty stomach, I would use 4 or 5 twice a day. I would also do EDTA chelation therapy with vitamin C called enhanced chelation. And I would do that once a week for 30. And doing all that with a low carb diet and exercise, then I would, an adequate water hydration, I would repeat the thermogram. And I'm sure you will see a nice reduction in the heat temperatures. Therefore, I am in favor of natural human bioidentical hormones. I am aware that most doctors don't know about iodine and fibrocystic breasts. I know they don't know about systemic enzymes in fibrocystic breasts. I know they don't really think very much of the power of a nice big glass of water, drinking half your weight as ounces every day of water. I don't think they appreciate the impact of EDTA chelation therapy with vitamin C at all. And I don't think they appreciate the value of aerobic exercise. The other thing is, as we age, our skin thins, and then the breast skin tissue thins, and the heat contents of the glandular vascularized glands becomes more dominant. So you put all these things together, Penny, and some things may look worse than they really are. I know that as we age, we tend to have, by the time we're 85, I've heard it said that if they look hard enough, they'll find a breast cancer starting in any woman or in any man, his prostate gland at 85. But that this would never be a cause of death per se, just if they found a little nidus of it. So more important, I would check your insulin, check your fasting blood sugar, your triglyceride, and your hemoglobin A1C. And these should be lower than the normal range is recommended because they're too tolerant of it. So a hemoglobin A1C, we cut off at 5.2. Triglycerides, we cut off around 50. Fasting blood sugar, we don't want higher than 85. And insulin, we want under 4. So do those things, take the enzymes, drink the water, exercise, and do the EDTA chelation, drink your water, enzymes, and take the iodine, and then repeat the breast imaging, and I think you'll see a nice temperature reduction. Tiziana says, hi, Dr. Rita. Some functional doctors suggest taking a break from supplements once in a while. They say to stop supplementations for like 30 days as the body gets used to the products, even when the supplements are medical grades, such as orthomolecular, etc. So they say it's good to stop to reset the system. What's your opinion on that? I don't think there's any problem with a month off once a year. I don't know any studies on this, Tiziana. And so I know in my busy life, I've probably certainly had 1 or 2 times in the past 50 years of my life where I've been off for a month or 2. But I have to say, I really have been on it almost daily ever since I can remember anything as a child. My father was putting supplements on our breakfast plates every day of our life. So, but give it a try. Let me know when I see you next. Be off for a month and then get back on. See if you see any really discernible issues or improvements or anything, and let me know. But I don't think it's going to be harmful. And then the last page, Zoila says, is a patient with a history of gallbladder removal 12 years ago at risk of hypercholesterolemia, high triglycerides, if on a ketogenic diet? The answer is no. Female, 58-year-old, not overweight, not a diabetic. My labs for the last year have consistently shown a total cholesterol of 200, elevated triglycerides. That's carbs in your diet. And the older we get, just the mere fact of aging, we're going to have more cells that are with holes poked in them as we age. It's just the way of life. There's going to be our rate of repair diminishes, so the number of cells with holes in it will increase. That will send messages to the liver that there are cell membranes that need cholesterol for repair, and your liver will generate cholesterol to repair it. So the older we get, if you don't hit to 200 by the age of 70, it is predicted that the life expectancy of someone who's 70 without a cholesterol of 200 is not good. So if you look at longevity and total cholesterol, you'll see there's a correlation that above 200 over the age of 70 is associated with longer life and health and vitality. So the total cholesterol, I think, is meaningless. Everything is around the triglyceride and the hemoglobin A1C, the fasting blood sugar, and the fasting insulin. So work on those things and discuss that with your doctor. It has nothing to do that you had your gallbladder removed. That's just a sac, a holding sac that can squirt out extra bile to help emulsify fats as it's passing through the bowel for absorption. If anything, you probably need to eat more cholesterol-rich foods. All right, so let's go to some of our chat questions. Silva says, what is your best time to take digestive enzyme, before or after the meal? For me, it's after the meal because I get so called away, interrupted by a phone call, interrupted by a patient or a situation. I take it after I eat so I know for sure I have something in there to digest, because I don't want to take a bunch of enzymes on an empty stomach and not have something for them to digest. So there you go, Silva. Christina says, Happy Thanksgiving. Happy Thanksgiving to you, Christina. Thank you, Dr. Rita, for everything. You've been a blessing. Well, I am blessed with, I really have the best staff. I have the best doctors working their best to bring functional medicine to their patients. We're all growing. We weren't taught this in medical school. We do meet monthly as a team. We shut everything down here and we all teach one another. We meet as doctors. We have case studies and so forth. So thank you, Christina, for being a wonderful patient, and to all our patients and our staff. Jenna says, so thankful for you, Dr. Rita. Happy Thanksgiving to you and yours. May the Lord continue to bless you. Well, thank you. This is a time of Thanksgiving. Nora says, from Anush and I, happy Thanksgiving to you and your family. Thank you, Dr. Rita. Praise the Lord. And Christina says, I've had a sore throat, a sore spot on my upper tongue and left arm for months now. On and off, sometimes it feels like someone punched me. I can't think of why. A sore spot on my upper, it's nothing about the tongue. It says I have a sore spot on my upper left arm. Okay. I don't know where I got the word tongue. Sore spot on my upper left arm for months. On and off, sometimes it feels like someone punched me. I can't think of why. I'm going to say it's probably the way you're sleeping at night. And you create like an exsanguination and pinching of the nerves there, and these little nerve bundles. So I would try and get a pillow or see how you're positioning your arms at night and see if that doesn't help it, Christina. And then systemic enzymes help. Drink more water. I think a cell-preserving cell membrane to put a shield up against damage. We recommend the Juice Plus series as our antioxidant. And of course, EDTA chelation helps the microcirculation. But work on your arm positioning at night and see if that might be associated with it. Otherwise, see your doctor and let us know. Let's see. Marquetta. Hi. You happen to know of any trigger for Graves' disease that people may not talk about much? Well, I think it's multifactorial, Marquetta. I think it is partially the one cell membrane lining of the gut. It's only one cell membrane thick. It's so easy to injure the inside of the tube of your mouth all the way to your anus. And that's from the food allergies and the marketing to get you to eat the same food over and over again. Number two, it's that we're not eating enough natural fat and phospholipids to repair it at the pace of injury. Those holes then create chronic inflammatory spots, which then create inflammation, and the immune system becomes alarmed, and then this misinformational alarm attacks the muscle tissues and the fibrous tissue behind the eye and is a autonomic phenomena of Graves' disease. So it's from the gut. It's from the lousy marketing and the corrupt pyramid from our corrupt medical industry teaching a foolish pyramid. It's from lobbyists buying off food industry favors to get away with glyphosation and genetic modifying our food. Now, it's also iodine deficiency. And we're mostly all iodine deficient, and our food system has been destroyed from this. And so you start putting in all these factors together. Our inactivity, we become more inflamed. Our lack of drinking water, we become more inflamed. Our eating more hours throughout the day, snacking, that aggravates the inflammation. Our stomach needs a quiet time to heal. So we teach eating in a time restricted 6-hour zone so that there's 18 hours your stomach can heal by. So those are some thoughts, Marquette, that may be helpful to you. Jennifer says, a relative just had second-degree burns on his face and neck after shirt caught on fire. Paramedics saw him, but other than the right ointments, what will help his skin heal? Use the spray of the Argentyn silver. That is cooling. That's the silver, nanoparticulate silver. It's moisturizing. Have them stay indoors and in a cool environment. So it's and try and just let the skin not be accosted by wind and light and anything else. To just let his probably it's mostly his face. So Argentyn silver will speed up the healing dramatically. Drinking lots of water, fasting stimulates healing. If you're on an empty stomach, that'll stimulate growth hormones. So if you could just get away with fasting for 3 or 4 days, that'll really stimulate that. Spray with the Argentyn, and he should heal very well. Enzymes such as Vitalzyme and Vascuzyme will reduce the scarring and inflammation that creates some of the pain. So that will help him as well. And then looks like there's a dirty person posting on here as well. God have mercy on their soul. Maxine says, happy Thanksgiving, Dr. Rita. So grateful for you. Well, ladies and gentlemen, yes, thank you. It looks like we got through all our emails. We got through all our questions on the chat. So I will sign off and get back to my family. Actually, I'm going to go work out with my trainer now. I brought my gym clothes in my bag. So I'm going to change and go and do some heavy lifting and then get a good night's sleep and then start all over again tomorrow. All right. Merry Christmas if I don't catch some of you, and Happy New Year, and what a wonderful time of the year this is. Good night.